tough to follow. Some of the stuff has already been talked about. Marty's career that began in 1947 in Life of the Father, followed by a film that he did, a war movie with John Wayne called Sands of Iwo Jima in 1949. And then next, Marty appeared in a film called The Halls of Montezuma. It was another war film that starred Jack Palance, Richard Widmark, Robert Wagner, and a whole slew of other people, Carl Malden. And it was the first location that Marty ever went on. I think they went down to Camp Pendleton to shoot the location stuff. And Marty's father, Marty was 18 years old, and Marty's father warned him, don't gamble. So Marty went down and did the location. He came home and his dad said, son, did you follow my admonition about gambling? And Marty said, no, I didn't. He said, well, how'd you do? He said, well, I won some money. He said, you did? He said, yeah, this guy that does this radio show called Dragnet, a guy named Jack Webb, won some money off of him. I got an IOU from him. And Marty's dad said, well, you can kiss that money goodbye. A couple of weeks later, Jack had offices over at NBC at Vine and Sunset Boulevard. Marty got a call to come over to Jack's offices to pick up the money that he owed him. And so Marty went to the offices, and Jack said to Marty, do you do radio? Would you like to do radio? Jack said, or Marty said, yeah, I would. So Jack started working Marty on the Dragnet radio show in 1951 or 2. And this preceded television, as you heard. So as soon as Marty started doing the show, the partner on that radio show of Dragnet, Barton Yarborough, passed away. Barton played a character named Ben Romero. And so Jack decided to hire Marty as Ben Romero's nephew. And he told Marty he was going to, the character he was going to play, he was going to be Jack's younger partner on the radio show. And Marty said, Jack, how do I play a character who's a nephew of a guy named Romero? Marty with his light hair and freckles. And Jack said, Marty, it's radio. You're not going to see me. Anyway, Marty's career after that continued. He did Operation Pacific, another movie with John Wayne. He did other great work in films that are now considered classics. The Sweet Smell of Success, Marjorie Morningstar, Mr. Roberts, and another movie that Jack produced called Pete Kelly's Blues. And that was in 1955. Marty then went on to do Route 66, and he worked with George Maharis. He also worked with another partner that replaced George on the show, a guy named Glenn Corbett, who was a friend of mine. I went under contract at Universal, and I met Jack for the first time when I did the pilot that brought Dragnet back to the air, and then I did an episode playing a uniformed police officer. And Jack had a 3-character episode written called The Interrogation, where I was a young rookie police officer working undercover and accused of holding up a liquor store. And that created my relationship with Jack. At that very time, Bob Senator was out riding along with a man who became a deputy chief here named Steve Downing, whose son is Michael Downing. And Bob was creating Adam 12, a show about 2 cops in the streets of Los Angeles doing what 2 cops in the streets of Los Angeles would do. And I was cast as the rookie in the show based on my work with Jack. And then Marty was cast. When Glenn Corbett found out that Marty and I were going to be working together, Glenn told me, you're just going to be the luckiest guy in the world. You're going to love this man. Glenn was not wrong. Marty and I had not met. I knew Marty, of course, through all of his work that he had done in film and a Route 66, which I was a big fan of. And I didn't get a chance to meet Marty. He was in New York doing and rehearsing for a play. And he got the time off to come to Los Angeles, to Hollywood, to do the pilot that we shot in September of 1967. And the first morning that we were going on location to do the first day's production on the pilot, Marty and I were to be at a certain designated area in the back lot at Universal to be picked up and taken to the location. And I had met Marty before. I actually hadn't met him. I worked with him. He didn't know me. I knew him though. It was on an episode of a show called Gidget that starred Sally Field. And Marty was playing the big kahuna. And I was working background, working as an extra. But this next time, we met on the back lot, and I remember very distinctly Marty yawning very broadly, and he said, "Geez, I can never sleep before I start one of these things." And I was so grateful that he was so open to show that side of him and his vulnerability and his nervousness about starting a new production, because I didn't sleep the night before either. And and Marty had all of this experience, and it immediately put me at ease with Marty. And from that moment on, Marty and I became more than just partners on a television show. We became friends. Our families intertwined. We vacationed together. We used to do these things, and I'd get in this emotional state like this. And Marty would step up and grab the mic. It was he was always there. We did the pilot. And then Bob Senator, as I said, who created the show, suggested that Marty and I get out and absorb the reality of what it was we were about to portray. So Marty was assigned a guy, a man named Lou Bollock. I don't know if Lou is here today. Lou was over in Van Nuys Division. He was a uniformed police officer. He was riding in an L car, and Marty became a ride-along with Lou. I got a man named Mike Waters, who was around my age at the time, 24. And he was working out in North Hollywood, and so I would call up and I'd say, "I'm coming out." I'd go to watch the roll call, and we'd go out and clean the car out, make sure there was no extra contraband left behind or anything, and go out and ride along. And I'd wear a sport coat and a tie and try to be as innocuous and part of the fly on the headliner as I could be in instances. And I probably spent a couple hundred hours, as did Marty, riding along. It became fascinating to us. It gave us a sense of the reality of what it was we were doing, and it gave us something to look forward to as far as the men and later the women that we were portraying on the show. I thought once we started production, we would be out on location somewhere and police officers would stop by. And we got to understand the significance of the show, that it really became much more than just an entertainment piece by the reactions that we were getting from you men in uniform who would stop by. And I remember distinctly two officers who stopped by. We were shooting in a park in North Hollywood, and they came out and they introduced themselves and they said, "God, you guys are really making it tough on us." I said, "Really, why?" And they said, "Because we got to live up to your image." And I thought at that time in 1968 that was a pretty good thing. And you have to remember, it's almost come full circle in my eyes. We had just come out of the Watts riots in 1965. There had just been the Democratic Convention in Chicago. There was the Vietnam War raging. Police officers were the front line of the establishment at that time. And in steps this show that puts you inside of a car and shows the human side of two police officers in uniform. And it really was something that changed my life, the ride-alongs especially. I was chief of police in my hometown in Baldwin Park, California, when I was 16 years old, because I was the judge of student court and we did an Operation Big Switch Day. And I always like to remind chiefs that I started out as a chief and became a rookie not too long after. So, there's that aspect of it. But we also had another response, and that was another officer who stopped by and said, "I can mark the difference between before Adam 12 and after Adam 12 in the way that kids are approaching us." And we were out shooting in the summertime mostly, and Adam 12 was one of the first shows to go out on the street and shoot on locations. Almost constantly we were out. And since it was summer, we'd get huge crowds of kids coming around. And it was a very interesting thing to have been a part of. A lot of it also, the technical stuff, we owe to the Los Angeles Police Department and to three gentlemen in particular. We had a training officer from the academy that was our technical advisor. After a first couple, we had a different technical advisor each day that we shot, or each episode that we shot, for about 3 episodes. And then we realized that we couldn't keep training the technical advisor as to the dramatic license that we were allowed to take, like not wearing the hat inside the car and stuff like that. So we had a man named Ed Monterelli, who became our first technical advisor with us, another man named Gil Jones, and another man that you're going to hear from in a moment, Bill Reinhardt, who was with us the longest and remained a friend to both of us, and especially Marty. The show and the impact made differences in both of our lives. It's wonderful to hear the difference that it made to men and women. We get this, Marty and I got it constantly, always, no matter where we were. The show was, of course, international. We got letters from places like Germany. I remember somebody sending us a picture of a green and white, and the 2 officers in it wrote and said, "We're the counterparts to you. We're the Adam 12 here in Germany." The show plays to this day. The significance of it, I think, is still having an impact. I do personal appearances around the country. I had a little 6-year-old girl come up to me. Her mother said it's her favorite show. She can't go by a police car without saying, "There's Malloy and Reed." and those kind of things are astounding when we figure that we started that show 48 years ago. The fact that we've lost Marty, Marty will remain with us as long as anybody says his name, and it'll never stop being said. We love you all. We were very proud of what we did, and I can tell you that Martin would be a little shy and flattered that you all turned out to honor him. Thank you.